All right, you filthy animals, buckle up. Today we're diving headfirst into the wild world of South Korean politics. We got a pile of your sources here. Looks like you're trying to get your head around what's going on in South Korea politically. So let's cut the crap and get right to it. South Korea, a presidential representative democratic republic, but with a history that's been, let's just say, colorful. And to help us unpack this clusterfuck, we've got a real brainiac on the line, someone who actually understands this shit.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So this whole democracy thing in South Korea, it's relatively new, right? Like, they weren't always partying in the streets and voting for whoever the hell they wanted.
Yeah, their transition to democracy has been a wild ride. We're talking a shift from a hardcore military authoritarian regime.
Bunch of jackasses with too much power.
Pretty much, yeah. The current constitution, the Sixth Republic, didn't even come into play until 1988.
1988, shit, that's like yesterday.
And get this, they impeached their president in 2004.
Wait, hold up, impeached. Spill the tea, what the hell went down?
So, Roh Moo-hyun, the president at the time, got accused of breaking election laws and being incompetent. Protests, political backstabbing, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like a goddamn soap opera.
The Constitutional Court overturned the impeachment, though, and Roh got his job back.
So they unimpeached him. What a shit show.
It just goes to show that South Korean politics can be pretty volatile even in their so-called democracy.
Okay, so they've had this full democracy thing going on, but the Economist Intelligence Unit said in 2022 that it was backsliding a bit. What's the deal with that?
Right. Things started getting a bit dicey, issues with media control, especially with this thing called the Korea Communications Commission, or KCC.
So the government was trying to control the narrative. Classic.
They also had this problem called hyper-presidentialism.
Like a president with an ego the size of Texas?
Basically, yeah. The president had way too much power. And on top of that, a massive ideological divide was emerging.
Like the whole country was splitting into two warring tribes.
Exactly.
So what happened? Did anyone try to push back against this bullshit?
Oh, hell yeah. Remember the candlelight demonstrations of 2016 and 2017?
Those were huge, right?
Millions of South Koreans took to the streets, pissed off about corruption and demanding political reform.
So they finally said, enough is enough.
It was a powerful demonstration of civil society flexing its muscles, and it had a real impact.
Did it actually change anything?
You bet it did. The corrupt president was eventually impeached and removed from office.
Damn, he got rid of the asshat. All right, so we've got a history of dictators, a shaky transition to democracy, and some massive protests. Where the hell does that leave South Korea now? Who are the major players in this political circus?
Well, there are two main parties. The Liberal Democratic Party of Korea, or DPK, and the Conservative People Power Party, or PPP.
So, like, the Coke and Pepsi of South Korean politics.
Exactly. Always fighting for dominance.
Okay, a two-party system. We've seen that movie before.
Their parliament, called the National Assembly, has 300 members elected for a 4-year term. They've got this weird mix of single-seat constituencies and proportional representation, which makes things interesting.
Interesting how? Come on, spill the beans.
Well, take the 2022 presidential election. Yoon Suk-yeol, the conservative candidate from the People Power Party, the PPP, won by the tiniest margin in South Korean history.
Jesus, talk about a nail-biter. So basically, South Korea is one big political pressure cooker.
You could say that. Tensions are high and everyone's waiting to see what happens next.
Well, this is getting juicy. But before we dive into the current state of affairs, let's take a quick breather. We'll be right back to break down the wild world of South Korean politics.
It's a goddamn powder keg, that's for sure. But hey, that's what makes it so fascinating. They went from a dictatorship to a full-blown democracy, basically overnight, historically speaking. You're bound to have some hiccups along the way.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Okay, so where do things stand right now? Who's running the show and what are they up against?
All right, so we've got Yoon Suk-yeol, our boy from the People Power Party, the PPP, for those of you who haven't been paying attention. He's the president, and he's got this grand plan to turn South Korea into a global pivotal state.
A global pivotal state. Sounds like some bullshit they made up in a think tank. What the hell does that even mean?
Basically, he wants South Korea to be a major player on the world stage. Think stronger alliances with the U.S. and Japan, more military spending, and a more aggressive foreign policy.
Well, up, more military spending, with North Korea right next door. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It's a delicate balancing act, that's for sure. They got to keep Kim Jong-un and his merry band of misfits in check, but they also don't want to poke the bear too hard and trigger World War III.
Yeah, the last thing anyone needs is those two going at it again. That would be a fucking nightmare.
Exactly. But it's not just about North Korea. South Korea wants to be a big player in all sorts of global issues like climate change, trade, and technology.
So they're trying to punch above their weight. Ambitious little bastards, aren't they? But let's talk about the folks back home for a second. What are the big issues that everyday South Koreans are dealing with?
Well, one of the biggest is the economy. South Korea is known for its economic miracle, but things aren't as rosy as they used to be. They're facing rising inequality, a housing crisis that would make even a New Yorker shit their pants, and a job market that's tighter than a nun's. Well, you get the picture.
So even in the land of K-pop and Samsung, people are struggling to make ends meet.
Sadly, yes, and it's creating a lot of tension, especially among young people. They're feeling the squeeze, and they're not happy about it.
Man, that's rough. What else is keeping South Koreans up at night?
Another biggie is social justice. There's a growing awareness of gender inequality, discrimination against LGBTQ plus folks, and a need for a better social safety net.
So they're dealing with the same woke bullshit as the rest of the developed world.
Pretty much. And it's leading to some heated debates about how to create a more just and equitable society.
Sounds like a goddamn mess. Okay, so we've got economic anxieties, social justice warriors. Sounds like President Yoon has his work cut out for him. How's he handling all this pressure? Is he up to the task?
Well, let's just say his approval ratings are about as high as my chances of getting a date with Kim Kardashian.
Ouch, that's gotta sting. Why is he so unpopular?
Some people think he's too focused on foreign policy and not doing enough to address domestic issues. Others think he's too conservative and out of touch with the needs of ordinary South Koreans.
So he's basically damned if he does and damned if he doesn't.
Yep, he's a polarizing figure, that's for sure. He's got his supporters, but he's also got a lot of people who would happily see him strung up by his food. Well, you get the idea.
Sounds like South Korean politics is anything but boring. But where the hell is it all headed? What does the future hold for this crazy little country?
Ah, the million-dollar question. Predicting the future of South Korean politics is like trying to predict the next Kardashian baby name. It's a fool's errand.
Come on, man, give us something. You're the expert here. Surely there are some clues, some trends we can look at to get an idea of what might happen.
All right, fine. One thing's for sure. South Korea is at a crossroads. They've got to figure out how to balance their global ambitions with the needs of their people. They've got to navigate the geopolitical shitstorm that is East Asia, and they've got to deal with the social and political divisions that are threatening to tear the country apart.
Sounds like a lot to juggle. Think they can pull it off?
That remains to be seen. They've got the potential, that's for sure, but they've also got a lot working against them. It's going to be a wild ride, one way or another.
Okay, so the future is uncertain. Any chance you can break it down into some concrete scenarios for us simple folk?
Sure, let's explore some potential paths South Korea could take.
Hit me with it.
One possibility is they continue on their current trajectory, becoming a major player on the world stage, a real force to be reckoned with. They could become a global powerhouse, a beacon of democracy and innovation in a region that desperately needs both.
Okay, so South Korea as the next superpower. I can dig it. But what are the downsides to this scenario?
Well, for one, all that military spending could piss off North Korea and lead to a conflict that nobody wants. And a more aggressive foreign policy could alienate their neighbors and make them enemies. Plus, if they're too focused on global domination, they might neglect the problems at home and end up with a population that's pissed off and ready to revolt.
Yeah, nobody wants to see South Korea turn into some kind of Orwellian nightmare.
Exactly.
All right, so global domination might not be the best path. What else you got?
Another possibility is they focus more on internal stability and social cohesion. They could prioritize economic fairness, tackle those social inequalities, and build a more inclusive society.
So basically, they get their own shit together before trying to save the world.
Exactly.
That sounds sensible. Almost too sensible for a bunch of politicians. But what's the catch? There's always a catch, right?
Well, the downside is they might become too inward-looking, too focused on their own little bubble. They might lose their ambition, their drive to be a leader on the world stage, and that would be a shame because they have so much to offer.
So it's a trade-off between global influence and domestic harmony. Tough choice.
It is.
Okay, so we've got global domination, South Korea, and domestic bliss, South Korea. What other options are on the table?
Well, there's always the wild card factor.
Wild card, you mean like
Like North Korea going full-blown nuclear on everyone's asses. Or a massive economic meltdown that makes the 2008 financial crisis look like a walk in the park. Or some crazy-ass climate disaster that wipes out half the country.
Jesus, you're really laying out the worst-case scenarios here.
Hey, I'm just being realistic. The world is a fucked-up place and shit happens. We can't predict the future, but we can prepare for the unexpected.
Fair enough. So basically, South Korea's future is a giant question mark.
Pretty much, but hey, that's what makes it so exciting, right? We get to watch it all unfold in real time.
Yeah. You know, you're starting to sound like one of those doom and gloom preppers who's always waiting for the world to end.
Maybe I've been spending too much time reading about North Korea. It's hard not to get a little paranoid after a while.
Well, I don't know about you, but all this talk about political intrigue and potential apocalypse has me feeling like I need a stiff drink. What about you?
I could go for a soju myself.
Well, folks, it looks like we're going to have to leave you hanging for a bit. We'll be right back to wrap up our deep dive into the wonderful world of South Korean politics. Don't touch that dial. All right, you magnificent bastards, we're back and ready to wrap up this deep dive into the enigma that is South Korean politics. Let's finish this shit up, shall we?
Let's do it.
Okay, so where the hell were we? Ah, yes, the future of South Korea. One giant clusterfuck of possibilities of potential disasters. Enough to make even the most optimistic motherfucker lose their shit.
It's true. The future's always a bit of a gamble. But even with all the uncertainties, one thing's for sure. South Korea is a country on the fucking move. They're not afraid to take risks, to flip the bird to the status quo, and to fight for a better future.
They're like the goddamn overachievers of Asia, always gunning for that. A+ no matter the cost.
That's one way to put it. They've gone from a war-torn shithole to an economic powerhouse in the blink of an eye, and now they're looking to make their mark on the world stage, ambitious little bastards.
But as we discussed, there are some serious potholes on the road ahead. North Korea is being a pain in the ass, as usual. Economic anxieties are brewing like a bad batch of kimchi. And social divisions are widening faster than a Kardashian's ass in a yoga class.
All true, but challenges also create opportunities.
Okay, Professor Sunshine, give us something to cling to. What kind of opportunities are we talking about?
Well, for starters, South Korea has a young, educated, and tech-savvy population. They're a goddamn breeding ground for innovation and creativity.
So they've got the brains and the balls to get shit done.
Absolutely. And they're not afraid to think outside the box. They're leading the way in fields like artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and renewable energy.
So they're not just about K-pop and those fancy Samsung phones.
Yeah.
They're actually shaping the future.
Exactly. And they're doing it with style. South Korean culture is blowing up right now. K-pop, K-dramas, Korean cinema, it's taking the world by storm.
I'm still waiting for that Korean zombie rom-com, though.
Yeah, that might be a stretch. But the point is, this cultural influence gives South Korea a kind of soft power that most countries can only dream of.
So they've got the brains, the hustle, and the cool factor.
Yeah.
What's not to love?
Well, there's still the issue of their political system. It can be unpredictable, to say the least.
Yeah, we've seen that firsthand. Impeachments, scandals, election results that come down to a handful of votes.
Yeah.
It's enough to give you whiplash.
It's a system that's still evolving. They're trying to find that sweet spot between presidential power and legislative oversight, between individual freedoms and social responsibility.
So it's a work in progress.
Aren't we all?
Fair point. Well, I think we've done a pretty damn good job of dissecting this South Korean political beast. What do you say? Did we manage to make sense of this chaotic shit show?
I think so. We covered a lot of ground. The historical context, the current challenges and opportunities, and the potential scenarios for the future.
It's been a wild fucking ride, but hopefully our listeners now have a better understanding of what makes South Korea tick.
I hope so, too. It's a fascinating country, full of contradictions and potential.
You know, I think you're right. Well, folks, that just about wraps up our deep dive into the wild world of South Korean politics. We hope you learned a thing or two, had a few laughs, and maybe even felt a little smarter for a minute. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay the hell away from North Korea. Peace out, motherfuckers.